So to recap just a little bit, what we just kind of walked through, and again, I almost want to kind of book into this of talking about really when we take a step back and say, what is the digital audit and therefore the components of a data-driven. To make it effective, you need to be hitting these types of elements within each phase. Because as I mentioned before, right, these things are expansive across the phases. You really shouldn't be deploying certain technologies just in one phase, right? That's really not efficient. And so when we talk about the response to risk or traditionally field work, really it's these elements that you need to be looking for when you're moving to a data-driven, effectively workflow or methodology. Because specifically having this and just having, again, procedures, that's one piece of it. But it really falls flat if you don't actually include those procedures and have it in a structure and a workflow that it's actually capturing the review and kind of the elements of the engagement, right? The administrative side. And so to make that most impactful is to obviously have that, but have, kind of in suite, in tool, an easy and flexible way to get to a lot of these elements, right? Of having a clear vision on structure and really understanding that when we talk about the response to risk, that is a dynamic situation, right? The risk assessment process is continual throughout an engagement. So having it flexible in a way that, again, makes sense and that it's not a challenge for users, but that people can get in at any point in time and really understand where they're at and know that they're doing the procedures kind of from guided templates or structure, but all the way to embedding logic so that, again, we all know that some engagements you change team members midway through, or maybe the team member that started doesn't finish, vice versa with completion. But having all these things visible and very clear on what work has been done, what was the workflow, both externally and internally with the team, as well as effectively any identifying areas where you've potentially been inconsistent, right, and to capture those things. So again, we've just shown you a lot of what that looks like in practical application, but I think when you take a step back and think about this just from a true technology standpoint, whether it's inflow centric or not, you really need to have these elements in there and be at the forefront, because this day and age technology permits it and it should be something you can drive. Similarly to kind of the completion piece of it. And again, I bring this up because, again, stretching across all those milestones or the phases of the engagement, I know that this is one area where a lot of times it can struggle. And I think coming through kind of the work from home and pandemic phase, this is one area that I think a lot of firms struggle that we hear about. Meaning, again, I think most engagement teams struggle with wrapping or concluding an engagement because they have competing priorities, right? They need to roll to the next engagement.